CTO of Sexion. I'd like to take a little bit to tell you about our company. Sexion started out with two friends, Mike and Kurt from Mike Earth, who was on the panel. And basically, they were playing online game together, located across the ocean, and they decided, talk to each other that they could do this better. I mean, the game's okay, but they thought they could do a better job. They were really interested in a couple concepts. They wanted to really kind of explore what other things can we do with social networks, and not only that, realize that there's not just one social network in the world, there are many, and how do we get all of those different networks and allow people to, really share across them. So to do that, we created a framework. Really, this is the root what we have. We knew we needed, as I got, you can see which slide the CTO made. We've got the cloud-based, scalable, service-oriented architecture. So that's all great names, everyone's talking about all those things. What does that mean? What that means is that we can quickly add social functionality to games. We can take those functionalities and take it across many social networks. The key thing is, which is very unique, is players on one social network can play against players on any other social network. The games are server-based, like say in the cloud, so there's no dependency that only a Facebook user can play on Facebook, or only a Twenty user can play on Twenty. Our first game to kind of demonstrate this concept is called Connection. There it is. We really love this game. As you can see on the outside, Connection's a game similar to Risk. It's a domination type world strategy game. You use dice, you take over lands. More importantly, look down below. What we've got is we've got these chat boxes. As players are playing the game in the network, they come in, 6 players sit down at a table. They can all play in real time. Most of your social games aren't like that. People aren't playing with each other. So they're chatting. We also have observers come to the table. They're also doing banter. Even when somebody loses one of their, loses out of the game, they get knocked out or they surrender, they stay there. They cheer each other on or kind of, say ugly things about each other, really kind of get the game going. And we can let them keep track of their friends. At the top, you see we've got our profile, the community, all our forums. All of that's part of our framework with a game that lives in the middle. So this is a concept we had with Connection. We wanted to make a unique game. We wanted a game that was hard. We found that if you have a hard strategy game, you're going to get some very loyal fans. We did find that. With that, though, does come some side effects. We find that because it is kind of a hard niche market, that we're not quite as broad as a Farmville. So it's not necessarily in everybody plays. So we have a few players that have played and realize it's not their thing. But when we do have users that play it, they get addicted and they play it over and over and over again. Here's why. We have monthly scoring. We have users that fight to get on our scoreboard. We had one user that played, we estimate, nearly 20 hours a day, continuous days in a row, just to maintain his #1 position on the scoreboard, because he was scared his friends were going to best him out of the score. Other social games, you have your farms in your towns. You've got to beg your friends to advance. When they call it social, that means I have to send you a request to enable send me some supplies, some stones, so I can build my next little thing in my farm. If I happen to find you in the game, I may have a chat bubble where I can talk to you and see what the weather is doing in, Tennessee or whatever else. Connection is different. In this game, it's real-time interaction with the players. So our players are actively sharing their ideas, they're making alliances, and then of course breaking them. The friendships form and the players keep coming back. We've kind of got a little community feel to it. So the business model we have right now, we're a game-type model. We have a challenging game. The game is very competitive, and the players challenge their friends, so they want to get better in the rankings. They need an edge. This is what we have. We have skills. So for a small, purchase, you can buy skills that give you a slight advantage in the game. Well, if I'm playing with skills and you're playing against me and we're both trying to get #1, you're not going to like that. So you notice the skills, you've got to keep your position, so you also buy skills. It's kind of a vicious cycle, except, oh, what do you know? The skills expire after 30 days. So you've got 30 days to use it. After that, your skill's over, so you've got to have the skills back. You've been playing with it for this long, so you need it again, so you come back and you buy more skills. Here's an example of our store and some of our skills. As you can see, that the players have different levels, so we level the players kind of like a chess-based system. So the further advanced you get in the game, the more advanced you can move up, the higher level skills you can buy as you're playing against players that are also at your challenging level. Keeps the game fair and balanced for new players versus experienced players. This is what we're looking for. We're aiming for a 6% virus player. Some people would say that seems kind of high, that Zynga has it much lower. Zynga also does things like Farmville, which, like I said, is very far-reaching. They want everybody to play it. We know our game is a little more niche in strategy because we're down in that hard corner of the triangle. So we think that we're going to have more players invested in the game so we can get a little higher percentage of those actually willing to convert. We launched the game on Twenty. Twenty is a Spanish social networking site. There's several unique things about Twenty and why we chose it. Twenty is a closed site. We made some contacts, we were able to get on their system. There's not an open API for games. On Facebook, anybody can put a game on Facebook. We could all make a game today and upload it to Facebook right now. Twenty is, like I say, closed, and not only that, they protect their games. They looked at us, they said, we don't have a strategy game like yours. We want yours, we integrated it, and part of that agreement is they're not going to implement other strategy games. So they got us there, we dropped us on our game homepage, that was the first jump you see, and then we started different promos. This is just placement on their game's homepage. We have done no marketing. In fact, with our agreement with Twenty, we have over 100,000 euros worth of advertising that we've yet to pull the trigger on. This is our virtual goods. So you said the players are buying skills. They buy the skills through our in-game currency called Lits. Lits are either earned by making achievements or actually purchased for cash. So this is kind of, as you can see, we've got a general trend. Even with our user base tying off, we've still got a trend of our skills for that. This is our players model. What the top shows is the players. So this is any player, so just players that play one game or more. And as you go down, you can see we've only been on Twenty for, I guess, 2.5 months now, going on 3 months. We already have players that have played over 100 games. So that is, they are daily players coming back. We have some very addicts. We have some that are really celebrating way past that. Here's what we're doing right now. So what we're looking for in 2012 is several different strategies. Of course, one is raising some money so we can keep improving our game. We want to keep improving the game and the model, and more importantly, we want to create a second game. We've proven our framework with one game, and we think that by taking that same framework code that we already have, plugging another game in the same network, we're shooting for adding another game with a lot larger reach than what we currently have to really kind of prove the framework out and take it further. The team. Our CEO is Carlos. He is in Spain. And as Mikey told you before, he has lots of business experience, and he has created another very large company in Spain and has very well connected. Part of the reason that we're on the Spanish social networking site. I am the CTO, who spoke earlier. Mike Smith, who's talking, was our president and co-founder. We're currently partnering with a Flash development firm with Ryan. He's our Flash guy. As you saw in the game, the Flash was just the pure client piece. So everything occurs server side, it's just a visual display. So one of the things we're also looking at is taking other technologies to implement the front end. So HTML5, iOS, so we can expand those other devices. Currently seeking $1 million. With this $1 million, it allows us to do several things. When we first started out, we did a little beta test on Facebook. We put some advertising dollars in it. We found that Facebook is an interesting little beast there. You have to pour lots of advertising dollars into Facebook to make a dent. If you just do a little bit, it kind of burns up very quickly. You don't get much return. So we're definitely going to promote on Facebook. We also have a single-player game that we're almost finished with that we want to push to the mini game sites. That is basically going to be a marketing piece for us. The single-player game, they'll come in, they'll congregate or something like that. They can play it and then link them, play with real players, and then get them back to the social networking sites. And then reach a second game. Conclusion, we're passionate about our project. We are created for gamers with an experienced team. We've been tested on Facebook. We've had success on Twenty, and we will make money from our operations. Thank you.
What questions does the panel have for our? Go ahead.
So you say you have about 250,000 users right now on Twenty. And then based on your potential return on revenue models here, are you earning anything that's equivalent to what you have here on your rev models? Are you making any money yet from these 250,000 users?
We're making some money. We have some starts. We're kind of identifying, since we've been out like 2.5 months now, that the monetization skills are just now coming to play. So like I said, the skills are purchased with our in-game currency. So as a user starts our game, they can play various levels and make achievements. So at an achievement, they get awarded in-game currency, and then they can buy their own skills. So we're finding that the users that have burned through those early achievements are starting to purchase now, which we kind of analyzed. Plus, we've looked at Twenty and with the Facebook integration we're doing. We've seen that in Spain, the amount of adoption of people that will actually pay for games is a lot lower than the United States and some other markets. So what we've basically used is the Twenty players are the base, because when you run a live game, the worst thing you can do is take a live game that requires people to play it, launch it somewhere, put out your marketing, and one guy comes to your site all excited and there's nobody to play with. So it sits there with empty tables. We've got tables that are filled 24/7 now with their Spanish players. So when we revise our marketing plan back to Facebook, every Facebook player will be able to play against those 20 players.
The other thing that concerns me a little bit is you're saying that the total users on 20 is about 8 million for everybody that's there. In addition to that, it's a closed network. It has protection. So therefore, your competition is kind of not really there in 20. You have kind of a protected ecosystem.
Right.
To be able to scale that and move out to these other networks, you don't really have a sense of how it's going to be to compete and really have to fight for those other users. And that kind of concerns me a little bit as well. How are you going to address that?
Well, one of the things with Twenty itself, Twenty is planning their own push into Latin America. Twenty sees themselves as the Spanish Facebook. So any Spanish-speaking country, they have expressed to us they are desiring to push into those countries. So as they push in, because we're already on their network, we will be part of that push. So that's definitely a benefit for us. I do understand your point with the competition. What we have found, though, is with our beta tests that we did on Facebook and our small users, we still have a core group of users that come back to our site every day on Facebook that's on our beta. And we have just now rolled them into everyone playing at the same platform. So that we expect to bring those core users back into full capacity and then add more. And really the Facebook push is where I see, like I said, the revenue coming in.
And my last thing, going back to the revenue and the people on your team, I don't see anybody that has a background in monetization or in revenue models dealing with social networks or social gaming. Part of the money that you're looking to raise go to strategic hire or some sort
That's the next hire, is a strategic expert on monetization.
And even some before this next round of fundraising, we've already got some talks and some early stages, some advisement and some counseling, as far as consulting on that monetization model.
We're to infer that these are all browser-based games right now? This game is browser-based?
Yes.
Okay. Can you kind of give us some more detail on your mobile strategy?
Okay, so the mobile strategy is, as I told from the game, it's cloud-based, everything's based on the server. So we have a Flash algorithm.
Right.
It does work on a Galaxy tablet. I've had my Galaxy and I've played it. Of course, it's missing that big one with a little Apple on it, so that's the main key. As a CTO, it's been a concern of mine. So because we kept the client, I like to call it a dumb client. It's a dumb Flash client. It just feeds in what we tell from the server. With this money, we're going to create iOS and other HTML5 consumers of the services that we've already written, so we can just turn around and it would be very fast for us to duplicate the game in the other environments. I'm investigating just pure HTML5 play, because that will work on the iPad. Myself, come from the background, I work for Libra Digital, where I generated and created a HTML5 ebook reader that's currently in use in all the Starbucks. If you go to Starbucks and you go and read their free books on their Starbucks network, that's the reader that I prototyped and then led a team to develop. So I've got a lot of background in HTML5 applications. I like that because not only does HTML5 work on the iPad, I can take that same base and move it to the Kindle Fire or whatever I want to.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things that you want to do next. The single player game, the second game, improve connection, leaderboards, things like that. Get your fire ratio up to 6% and just now global strategy. Can you tell me how, among the $1 million you're trying to raise, what are you going to allocate towards which one of those categories?
I think we've done some stuff on the market. I mean, I know that initially we've got some marketing dollars for Facebook is going to be a decent percentage of that.
We're looking at $500,000 or $600,000 for marketing Facebook. Go and hire a monetization expert, that's part of it. And we have to hire a creative game designer for a second
We have some other documents that we've talked with our CEO about. And we can, feel free to visit with you at a later time.
How big can this get? I mean, if this game is wildly successful, how many users will it have?
Okay, it's an interesting point. We've tried to do some analysis, and it's like I pointed out, it's a niche game. And when you get down to it with the strategy and the difficulty, that's why when I created the game and was really taking the game, I came on the company about a year ago. The game was in a prototype stage at that point, and then with the background I have of creating huge scalable applications for big enterprise customers, I kind of took that aspect of it and made it service oriented. So the framework is what I'm more excited about, because if this game does indeed reach its peak and it's not it's like, okay, we've reached a volume of players and it's just not going to bring the dollars that we expect. The framework that's constructed can take another game. There's lots of table-based games. So we have the idea of the Risk game is you sit down at a table with your friends. We could take any other game of that format and just basically plug it into the system and then reach even further audience.
We had a Asian company that was interested in our game, and we eventually figured out they were primarily interested in the technology, because you can plug in different casual games and it's scalable. Asia's the really big online social game network. China's 5.8 billion, Korea's 2 billion, Southeastern Asia's 1 billion. And they wanted a game that could be a platform where they could stick in games and it would be massively scalable to the Chinese market.
The other piece is when we launched on 20, they were nervous. 20 was actually nervous with us. They worked with lots of other game developers because 20 is small and they limit the number of games, when they put you on their homepage, you get hit. And they had too many games that they did the launch and the sites just crashed. They were talking to me, I was like, I found that the users, I was not even sweating. I'm like, no, the application can scale. We had no problems with scalability.
I'm thinking more in terms of comparables, to say, pick a game that's kind of got a use model like yours.
Right.
So I'll make something up. Farmville.
Right.
How many people use Farmville?
There's a couple on that. That's huge. It's 10 or 11 million.
10 or 11 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so we've got some.
So if you're wildly successful, you'll have 10 million users.
Right.
So in one game.
Right, in one game, with those caveats. The other thing is, we have been contacted to kind of open the doors a little bit more. With our game on 20, we've kind of gotten exposure to other social networks. Because we've shown we can do it on Facebook and 20, we've actually been contacted by a Polish company that says, hey, we got a social network.
We were contacted by a Latin American company also that wanted the game to publish it in different regions. There's different social networks in pretty much every country. They're not as well known as Facebook, but there are language-specific, geographic-specific social companies.
So of course, before we do those, we're doing the due diligence, looking at the networks, maybe because it takes a certain level of effort to get them there, whether it's just translation or the time. I've got to have developer resources to spend some time to integrate that. So of course, we do some due diligence. Is it worth going in there or not? There is something for just blanketing the field, saying we're on 50 networks. There's some logic there. If we were on 50 networks, that makes the platform even stronger. But at the same time, is it worth some really small kind of idea that someone says, I'm going to create this great social network, and we see that those, Facebook-like sites die every day. So it's picking the right ones.
So Ron asked me to play the role of Simon Cowell today. So some of my questions are going to be somewhat confrontational. I don't mean it that way. I'm just trying to...
With caveats, okay.
I'm trying to suss out the ideas. So Facebook is about 85% of the social market, right? So what you're talking about is playing around in the shallow end of the pool. It supposes, and your idea seems to me to presuppose that the Facebook API remains open for being able to pull the data pull people from the Facebook social network or from your other social networks onto your own site. What happens to your idea, the core pull of your idea being the social interaction, if Facebook, for instance, should decide to close that? Can the game stand on its own is my first question. Yeah. And then second to that is, that presupposes also, I believe, that you're asking people to build a second friends list external within your game, within your platform, that's external to the friends list that they've already built on their existing social networks, which seems to be the point of having it be a social game anyway. So aren't you asking people to recreate something that they've already made?
No, and actually this is kind of where the differences are. On 20 and on Facebook, we have a Facebook app. It's, you go to apps.facebook.com, and you
And there's
hit
the
us.
allow button.
And there's the allow button, so they have all of that. 20's the same way. We're embedded in the site. So
Okay.
the users, it's not we're over here and we're pulling you
You're not-
from those.
Okay, so it's not a
We're
reboot.
actually, yes, it's actually inside. The only difference is, even though you're inside Facebook, when you're playing a game, another player may be on another social network.
So then, within your business model, then, there's a 30% cut already, you're allowing for the 30% cut that Facebook has taken.
Yes.
So it's not, so your business, and that's material to the business model, just when you explain it to me, that's something that I would like to see in your pitch, is, because part of the impetus for someone like me to get involved in something like this is that there's not that 30% take. In a lot of these situations, in a lot of these social games, that's the margin. Right? If you're talking about 70% of net revenue being able to be invested back into user acquisition, then that 30% then is your margin. If Facebook's taking that, that leaves 0% margin.
Right.
So
Now, with that, the one thing we have seen though is, in our game at first, when we first started, so it was a browser-based game, we had ideas, it was how do we target people first in the United States? So I want to ignore the 13 to 15-year-olds.
Sure.
Okay? However, Facebook credits, and 20 has their own credit system, you can go buy those at a store. They can be given as a birthday present. They can have a 13-year-old can say, Mom and Dad, I want to be able to buy games on Facebook. So we've kind of also opened the market of the people that can actually spend their money, because you can give your kid 50 Facebook credits and then they go spend them on whatever they want to. So it does kind of open the range of possible paying players.
sure. Your conversion rate, you guys spent a lot of time qualifying it. I think your conversion rate target is actually conservative, given your target of core. I mean, when you're talking about a 1 to 2% attach rate for a casual game, I think that certainly the comparison, I can understand that you feel that that's aggressive. But when you look at the Kabam and Kickstarter model, some of the stuff that you guys were talking about, they monetize at a 3 to 10x multiplier over the 1 to 2%. So I think 6% is actually fairly conservative for a core title. I don't think you need to justify it as much as you did.
Okay.
You guys talked about your funnel. You put up a slide about your
Yes.
funnel. Does that indicate that you guys use Contagion? That's one of their favorite models.
No.
What do you use on the back end for your data modeling?
Right now, we have a whole bunch of homespun data modeling, so I've got lots of reporting that we do. Our CEO, his other company is a customer satisfaction company, and he is a data, as he calls himself, like a data nerd, so he loves all the raw data I can give him. So he does a lot of the number crunching and has different models that he's using on his own.
So I was also going to comment on your monetization strategy. I think there's a bit of a disconnect. This is just my personal opinion. Again, take it or leave it. But I think there's a bit of a disconnect between your monetization strategy and the kind of game that you're presenting. The experience that I've seen in the open market, to dovetail on what David was talking about, is that core gamers view skill or buying advantage as cheating. A perversion of core gameplay mechanics. Casual gamers are willing to tolerate that sort of, let me advance my play, let me buy my way forward, but you see the greatest success on free-to-play, in particular with core gamers in the United States, specifically with games like League of Legends. I'll use it as an example. World of Tanks is one of the ones that was used by Ted in the keynote, where people are paying for access, to cross the line of growth. How do you view your monetization strategy in this closed market? I think is one thing, but when you start getting out into the open market and you have this target that has effectively rejected your monetization strategy, how do you feel you can adapt to that?
Well, there's an interesting thing. We use the ELO chess ranking system, and that stratifies different types of players in different areas. And what we found is that the higher levels, there's an amazing amount of people who will spend money, and it's become a game of matching your skill set against someone else. You have different powers. It shows on your player HUD what you have, and it becomes a guessing game. It's not really this risk-like game anymore. It's like outguessing and trying to figure out what your player has. Also, you can get those skills by doing free things. It may involve you playing 5 hours a day for 30 days in a month, but you'll get the same skills that you can buy. It's a convenience factor.
So there's a matching system so that you're not outmatched every time, because otherwise your free-to-play system doesn't really sound that free, because I'm constantly having to buy to keep a skill level up. So are you saying that you have a matchmaking system?
Yes, it is. So in our tables list, so when you go, there's a whole selection of tables you can go. Everything is lined out with matching. And you can also see, other players you are working with and against. And the other thing you pointed out that we have looked at towards monetization, like I said with the advantages, is we're looking at other items to adjust and sell, where things that don't change, things that a core gamer would like, but not necessarily change the gameplay. For instance, right now, you're randomly seated around the table. So one of the things we're thinking of, one of the skills we tossed around is, I have this skill, I can always be red. I like red, I want to be red every time, I'm willing to pay to be red. Or I want to pay to be green.
Sure.
And so it doesn't change the gameplay, but it does give them that feeling of I'm always red, or something along those lines.
And we are switching right now, each table consists of a different kind of map, and that completely affects gameplay. We are setting aside maps for people that are willing to pay to be contributors that they get to use. So we are kind of moving.
Yeah, one of the things
towards that
that's
model.
in the top was a contributor idea. So we're going to have a contributor badge type of system and a contributor benefits, and that's something that
My last comment was just that when you said $1 million, I imagined a small man in Spain with a pinky going, $1 million. It's a really nice even number that doesn't, and you didn't tell me anything about how you were intending to spend it and what those things would buy. I would need that in a pitch. It should be very clear what you're intending to do with that $1 million, because at the moment it looks like it's just a number you picked out of the sky that, hey, we can spend $1 million. I can spend $1 million on anything. I need some very specific sort of, here's what we'd spend it on, and here's how we're going to measure our success against that expenditure.
Let me kind of follow up on that. Earlier, you referenced spending between 50 to 60% of your capital raise on marketing. This is kind of a bucket category, specifically on Facebook. You guys done any analysis on your average acquisition cost per user?
Yeah, we've done some analysis. It's pretty expensive on Facebook.
And that would be?
It's $5 to get a player.
That's what you think? Okay.
that's what we initialized with our. That's what we found with our
We ran
beta
some
test.
tests
Is that for paying user or per install?
per install.
Holy
Not
smokes.
per install, for actual. There's two levels here. So if you saw, we have a number of users and we have a number of players. So the players number is people that actually play more than one game. So it's not the, hey, I saw your fancy
And I can deal
thing.
out
Let me
of it.
click and look at it and go, no, I didn't make it through the demo, so I bailed on you.
Sure.
Versus they're committed. So really, when we look at what's happening, we look at the players number because it's like, okay, these are the people that are actually doing the game. The other rest was the fluff that kind of came in and took a look at it and moved on.
So at your level of player base, that number is about 10x what it should be, just as a benchmark, just to let you know. So as a strategy in terms of what you should spend that $1 million on, that would be one of those things I would focus on, is how do we drive the cost per install down? In other words, how do we serve either fewer ads and get better traction so that our CPI comes down?
Now,
Because that's really high.
That was estimates on our first Facebook, our beta test.
Sure.
On 20, that's not been that. I mean, there's been a $0 acquisition.
Sure.
They dropped us on the homepage, boom,
That's a
everything
close-
took off.
close
So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but to Zach's point, playing 20 in any of the Polish social network and everything is the shallow end of the pool. I mean, if you want to swim with the big boys, you're going to have to figure out how you get access to the hundreds of millions of users that are available on Facebook, and how do you monetize on them at a much lower CPI.
Right, exactly. And then that's where the joint, where I'm kind of banking on the joint effort of all the gamers play together. So we have our users on the Spanish site that are filling tables. So when we start adding American users or not even American users, Facebook users. The other thing is we did approach the Facebook as far as English speaking in the United States. Facebook is everywhere. So we're also considering looking at marketing in Spanish because our game is fully translated in Spanish. It hit the Spanish Facebook gaming market, which is kind of still a lot bigger audience. But the game can go English or Spanish, and I think a lot of current games on Facebook ignore the translations.
That's about the time we have for the judges' questions, so let's go to the audience. What questions do you guys have? We have about 10 minutes, so if you could just stand up and ask your question. You first.
So the way I see it is you're banking on people's urge to win. Would that be a fair statement to make?
Yes.
But the higher levels of the game, it's not just about being in the top 500. You start working at the higher levels of the ELO system, it's a lot more about a socializing thing. You're coordinating hundreds of people to win as a team. It becomes much less of a game sitting around a board, but it becomes much more of a social thing in being part of the group. There's regions that play against other regions. There's teams of friends that play against other friends. So it gets a lot more complex.
Because we have the open chat, it makes something interesting, like you said, with the Friends Network. So you have your own friends, and most social networks, you can only talk to your own friends. When our game, while you're playing, you're chatting with everyone at that board. So let me tell you what happens. So it's all in Spanish. I don't know Spanish. I'm trying to learn Spanish, and let's say I can learn some very creative phrases reading our chats. So engaged in a game, jump in the chat. The first thing was spit out was "Yo soy tu padre." I'm your daddy. And it's like, that was the type of talking that went and drove the back and forth in the game. And as one person starts leading, the ones that get kicked out immediately revel against the winner. It's like, oh, you need to kill, he killed me, you kill him next. And then they just quickly turn on each other.
So it's sort of all about just getting them to make that first install and then building the rest from there.
Right, so a lot of it is getting in. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things we've changed, we've been out there 2.5 months. Because we're a web-based game, we can change very fast. We've eliminated, we had a homepage of the game that we took a look at and went, wait a minute, there's not much, we looked at what was there, like, we don't need it, cut it out. So we've minimized the clicks from when you get there to you get in your first game. We've got it streamlined so you sign in, you get a demo because it is a little more complicated. We can't just drop you in like a farm bill. We give you a demo and then it's like, boom, you're in a game. Because we know if we can get you playing, then either you're going to be like, I don't like these kind of games, I'm out, or I do like these kind of games and I'm involved in it now, and so I'm going to play another game.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a question. You mentioned that this is cloud-based and played on the cloud server. Have you discussed implications of the fact that it's using the quote-unquote cloud, the fact that it's not brick and mortar, it's just, you don't know exactly where the server is, where it's not, very well cannot be in the States, so there's going to be again legal implications. So that's something I'll tell you.
Right. Currently, we're using Google App Engine. So with Google App Engine, unlike the Amazon, I've been very familiar with cloud-based computing for a long time. I've used the Amazon EC2 instances where you can actually declare regions. Google hasn't quite gotten there yet. They're talking about it. So when they do, of course, we'll move our game around their different cloud servers to emphasize their different regions where we need them. But we found that through excessive testing and then, of course, real-life application, the Google App Engine has scaled for us incredibly well, and I've never had a glitch or a problem with it.
Any other questions?
That's sort of is it possible to cheat in the game?
No. In fact, we had a large inquiry. There were some accusations of cheating, and they were using, what do they call it? What they call the application. There's some application now you can cheat on the farm bill. Basically, it's a hex editor that reads memory address locations, and people would document where the gold was, and then they go into the hex editor and they change their gold amount and they put it in there. That only works, and they said they were using it in our game as cheating, and CTO went, you know what, prove it to me. You find me a cheater of a game, and I'll give you $50, I'll take a look at it. We're server-based. So everything gets calculated on the server and then spit back out to the clients. So it's a dumb client. So even if you manipulate your version, so yours says you're winning, it doesn't matter. The server knows what's going on and it keeps track of everything. Think of it as similar to working as the poker type sites. When you sit down in a poker game, you have your cards, they have their cards. It's not like you have all their cards in front of you on your location.
How long is it until your first typical monetization event? So from the time someone installs, what's the amount of time, either in duration or in sessions, before you attempt to monetize the user the first time?
What, about 50 games?
Yeah,
It seems like
it hits at about 50 games, and so far we've had 4,000 players who played over 50 games.
And how long does it take them typically to get to 50 games?
50 games is about 20 minutes a game, so just depends on...
I mean, in terms of number of weeks, and how
Right.
often do they play?
Oh,
I don't know what that number is.
yeah, we've
I don't know
grown.
behind that.
Let's see.
Is it 4 weeks? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 8
It's
weeks?
more like 4 weeks.
Yeah,
We have, when they typically go, the other nice thing with our game tables is when you finish a game, it immediately reloads the game. It's like, okay, you're done. Like everyone, we got beat. So as soon as it ends, click, and they all sit right back down again. So it's this kind of
So your attempt to monetize them does not occur until after they've been engaged. They've installed and have been engaged for at least 4 weeks.
No, here's what we found. We found that's when they do monetize.
Okay.
Our attempts to monetize them earlier. Now, one reason is because we talked about, and we're thinking of changing some of this, the free stuff we're giving away. You know, just like the drug dealers, we give away the free stuff first. Like here, use
No,
the skill.
This is a room full of lawyers. It's not like the drug dealer. Your game is compelling. It's not addictive.
Exactly. So, yeah.
It's free advice. I'm not a lawyer.
So it's a,
You can get a lot of free stuff by playing long enough on the game, and it was kind of a mistake. Because we have an economy of 10 million lits, and it's become so much of a part of the game to get the free stuff that we've had 9 million lits earned for free, and so we've got to cut out a lot of the free stuff.
now, the one thing with cheating that did occur though, we did have some users that figured out that if you finish a game, you get like 2 points or something. I mean, they want to climb up the point board, so you get just 5 points. They played a 2-player game, and they both surrendered. And they did that 1,000 freaking times. They just kept on to jack the points up. So it was like, we didn't think anybody would bother to do that. As soon as we identified it, we went, let's see them try it again. They go negative next time they pull that. So it's like this little adjustment. It's like I can just see it, adjust it, and then push it back out again. There, close that hole.
And that's our time. Thank you so much.
I'm going to try this without a microphone. Can you guys back? Really good? All right, great. Well, I'm Chris Meyer. I'm the CEO and founder of Night Owl Games. I founded Night Owl Games in 2008, and we're based in Austin. And my first question is, how many of you play social games, like Farmville, or have played? Farmville, Frontierville, Castleville. Usually when I ask this question in a room full of angel investors, I get no hands at all. I see a few. That's good. But not a lot, so we'll go over a little bit about what the social games market is and what it's all about. Very easily, you can sum up the vast majority of social games as slot machines. They are virtual slot machines. Players perform the same repetitive mechanics over and over again to get some virtual reward, some kind of reward for them, and they'll continue to perform these same monotonous mechanics over and over again, whether it's collecting their farms or feeding their animals, in the hopes of continuing to gain these small rewards. And we at Night Owl Games, we hate these slot machine type games. We want to make games that appeal to the core gaming market. Games that are deep, they're strategic, and they're immersive. These are games that you can play as a hardcore gamer when you can't be near the console, which has got like Call of Duty on it, or World of Warcraft, something that you really want to play. Maybe you're at work or you're at school and you can't play those games, but you do have 5 or 10 minutes to kill. We wanted to provide a game for those players. Currently, there's not a lot of games on Facebook. There's virtually zero for these kinds of games. What's great about this audience is they monetize very well. This is an audience that is very used to spending a lot of money, more than they spend on TVs and movies, on video games. So for that reason, we really wanted to appeal to that market and bring them onto Facebook. If you haven't known, the social gaming market is huge. I expect most of you already know this in the room, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's dominated by players at the top like Electronic Arts and EA, who provide a very casual, very slot machine kind of mechanic to their audience. There are some players down on the bottom end of the scale like Kixeye and Kaban that are attempting to monetize the hardcore gaming market, and that is squarely where we fall. Our first game is called Dungeon Overlord. It's a hardcore social game. It's a strategy game, and it's a massively multiplayer game. So there are thousands of players that play together in this world and compete against each other. We launched our beta in early 2011, and we have released the game in late 2011, in October. What that means is we've actually started spending real marketing dollars on the game to try to grow our user base. Night Owl Games owns 100% of the intellectual property and all the trademarks associated with Dungeon Overlord. In Dungeon Overlord, the players take on the tongue-in-cheek role of an evil fantasy villain. So if you've seen Lord of the Rings, it's kind of like you're playing the role of Sauron. But it's not a very serious game in the sense that it's dark and oppressive. In this game, you're trying to attract these monsters to your lair. You build things that monsters and orcs and goblins like to do, and in return for buying their loyalty, they'll go out and fight for you in the realm against other players. We've achieved a 4.7 out of 5-star rating on Facebook. We have 100,000 monthly active users, and currently we're generating around $70,000 a month. This is a graph of our daily active users. So you can see while we were in beta in May, we were growing a little bit organically, and then in October is when we started our first advertising spend. So we've managed to grow our user base up to around 25,000 users, which is where we're at today. And here are some of the statistics about how we stack up against our competition. We currently monetize just over 6% of our player base. We're actually now at 12 cents per day for our ARPDAU. What that means is for every daily active user, we generate 12 cents per day. The lifetime value is approximately $1.20 for us right now. So given the retention and how long those players stay, they're worth about $1.20. The virality for our game is around 30%. What that means is for every 3 users that I buy in advertisements, I get another user for free, either through the social networks in Facebook or by word of mouth or by some other event. And then for those 3 users, they'll bring in an additional user for free. So that's how virality sort of steamrolls on itself, and you can acquire these extra users. And that virality helps keep your cost of customer acquisition down, which for us is currently about 60 cents. So for every 60 cents that we spend trying to acquire a user, did I get that right? Yeah, for every 60 cents we spend, we bring 1 user into our game. And that gets us to the Facebook business model. For us today, these numbers change all the time, and I'll talk about that. It costs us 60 cents to bring a user in who's worth $1.20. And that's our monetization. Every Facebook game, every social game has this same business model, and it's a fight to keep your cost of acquisition lower than the total value of your user lifetime. And that's what all these games are about. We spend all of our time in development affecting these 2 numbers. If we spend time on virality, let's say, features that encourage users to bring their friends into the game, that keeps our cost of acquisition lower. If we spend more money on development time adding more things to the shop, that keeps our lifetime value higher. And then retention is an interesting one, because with retention, if we keep our players happier in the game for longer, it actually works in our favor for both of these numbers. I think I lost my remote, so I'll head over here. So here are some various revenue scenarios. Given the growth that we have today, we're on track by the middle of next year to reach about 150,000 daily active users. That translates into about $500,000 of monthly revenue. The goal we set for the team is by the middle of next year to be at 250,000 users, which would give us monthly revenue of about $900,000. This is our 3-year projection. So most of 2012 is just with Dungeon Overlord. The blue chart at the bottom is our domestic, that's the United States monthly, annual income. And the red is our estimated international income. That comes mostly in the form of Korea and Europe. We are finishing our open beta in Korea. We have a publisher, they're called The9, they're a very large Chinese publisher. They're publishing the game for us in Korea. That should be monetizing starting next month. And we are in negotiations with several European publishers to publish the game in Germany and France and a few other countries in Europe. By 2013, we expect to ship our 2nd game, and we will do an international launch for our future titles. And by 2014, we'll be shipping our 3rd game and monetizing that. So that shows our revenue growth strategy for the next 3 years. And this slide here kind of shows our expenses. Our expenses, they scale pretty well as we go to different markets, especially as we share some of the costs with a publisher for marketing and customer support. So our 2nd game, which I want to talk a little about, which is one of the reasons that we are raising money, is tentatively called Pirates Trade. One of the criteria we have for starting a 2nd game is that we can heavily leverage the technology we've already built for Dungeon Overlord. So the game itself will feel similar in a lot of ways, and hopefully because of this technology play that we're making, get the game out in less than 12 months. The plan is also to leverage our existing marketing, so we can roll users that we've already developed a relationship with in Dungeon Overlord into our new game as well. And use the same microtransaction model that we're having success with in the new game. Very quickly, Pirates Trade is inspired by Sid Meier's Pirates, where you take on the role of a pirate captain. And your job in this game is to build an economic empire in the Caribbean. It's very much economic focused versus geographic conquest focused, which is the first game. So to win in Pirates Trade, you're trying to build up a very successful economic empire, as either a pirate or as a trader in the British, the Spanish, or the French Empire. You construct a little cove, which exists on these Caribbean islands, much the same way that you would be constructing a dungeon. And your job is to use that to build up a vast fleet of ships and a scurvy crew that you can use to help further your objectives. It's massively like Dungeon Overlord, where you can trade with other players by sending your fleets around to the different coves that other players have built, in an attempt to buy low and sell high with the goods that you're managing in the Caribbean, like rum and cotton and so forth. Or you can achieve that by stealing these goods from other players, by living the life of a pirate, and by taking what should be yours because you're stronger. The Night Owl Games team consists of veterans who've been around and producing games. We have over 50 years of total online game development experience at the studio. I myself have 13 years of experience in online games, working as both a developer and a publisher, including my latest role as Vice President of Product Development at NCSoft. And we have a good crew of people who manage the other aspects of the company, covering art, technical, and marketing and sales. For this round of funding, we're seeking $1.8 million, $1 million of which is already committed. The use of these funds is to both scale Dungeon Overlord, so to reinvest in marketing and also kick off the development of our new game. The revenue share up there is something that we're experimenting with in this round because we've had a lot of interest from angel investors that wanted to try a different kind of deal. So let me take a moment to explain what this is. An angel who invests in our company earns a percentage of revenue across all of our games until they return 2 to 2.5 times their investment. And they're also protected by warrants, which are equity in the company. This is a little bit different, but something we were introduced to by a capital company in Austin called Next Step Capital Partners. And this is the only kind of deal that they do because for them, they feel it's the best fit for games. So for this round, this is something that we're looking at, but we are leaving the common stock equity play on the table for investors who aren't comfortable with the new way that we're raising money. But in short, if this is something that you're interested in, this is a scalable business that we are pretty proud of where we've achieved today. And our target is in 2 to 3 years to be acquired by a company like Zynga or Electronic Arts that are currently in the more casual space, but they're looking to make a play in the more hardcore space, and they don't have any games in that market yet. So that is our plan, and thank you for your time.
Questions from the panel?
Sure. That's a great pitch.
Thanks.
Thank you. You were talking about $70,000 a month in revenue. With 16 people, that puts you at a negative cash flow situation. When do you forecast hitting cash flow neutral?
Yeah, our break even with our current numbers is around 100,000 daily active users.
When do you target hitting that number? When do you expect to hit that?
Right, by the middle of next year. So by the middle of next year, we'll hit 150,000 daily active users. So we're hoping then we're cash flow neutral by about June or July. If I say next year, I'm sorry, I'm still back in 2011.
This year.
June or July of 2012.
6 months.
That's right.
Your K factor of 0.3 is excellent. That's a great target. I think a lot of your numbers line up really well. The only number that I question is your lifetime value number of 1.2. I think that's low given what your target is for your demographic. Do you guys have plans for raising that up?
Yes, I agree with you. My contacts at Kixeye and Caban both indicated that's a low number. They like the rest of our numbers.
All the rest of your numbers are
but
really
the lifetime value, they say you need to be shooting higher.
Yeah.
So our plans for that is to roll out a premium plan that a lot of our competitors have. This is something that a long-term user will opt into that gives them a more strategic overview of the world. If you're familiar with Travian or Tribal Wars, this is something that they offer their users, which is a sort of subscription light because it's something that can cancel on a week boundary, but it's essentially like subscription revenue. And based on feedback we've gotten from European publishers, that this is sort of the thing we need to to get our lifetime value in the $3 to $4 range, which is where they think we should be.
Yeah, I think at least $3 to $4, especially given your core demographic target. And my last question is, you guys are Flash-based. Plans or for investment in moving on to Flash 11?
That's actually a good question because we're not sure. It'll either be Molehill or HTML5 WebGL, but we have not decided as a company yet what our future tech play is going to be. We've already committed to not doing that for our second title. We wanted to try to leverage some of the technology we've made for game number 2 before we make a tech switch. But by game number 3 or 4, there will be a tech switch, and that's a big decision. We're HTML5 versus Molehill is a big decision that I'm not today willing to make. I want to do more research.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question for us looking at making a strategic investment in a company like yours, particularly because you're talking about targeting a core gamer who has a brand expectation or a gameplay expectation of high visual fidelity, and being able to bring that consumer that experience outside of a 2D Flash presentation, I think is going to be key to appealing to that demographic. I think that where you decide to go there, at least what your thinking is on that, would be key to an investment decision.
Yeah,
but I like that you thought about it.
Yeah, it is an important. It's a very, very important decision. So I don't want to just take a shot in the dark and to go that way. But I agree. It's that is an answer that all developers in our space are going to have to deal with, which of those paths to go down.
This is a great pitch. You did a great job.
I also think it's a great pitch. I have 2 questions. Number one, as you say, you're competing in like the demographic against the fans and everything in the world, and I see that there's a lot of world building that goes in there. What kind of mechanics are you bringing that make it more than just your typical point-and-click social game? What kind of hardcore mechanics are you trying to implement? Combat systems, things like that, that make it stand out from the rest of the field is the first question. And second, as you expand into game number 2 and game number 3, what is your strategy to avoid the pitfalls of what Zynga is doing when the new game is cannibalizing users from the old game? How do you plan to keep those games going while increasing users on all fronts?
Sure. All right. So let me try to tackle those. So the first question was how do we develop our game to distinguish ourselves from our competitors? To boil it down, when we started developing Dungeon Overlord, we had a plan, and that plan was to take the strategy market that we wanted to compete in, which is namely the Kingdoms of Camelot, which is Kabam's big title, and then and improve upon that model. So our long-term strategic play is very, very similar to theirs. But we made the decision to try to beat them in the moment-to-moment gameplay. So what we've done is make a very visually appealing game with a lot of animation going on, creatures doing their own thing, and a lot of activity, which is something that these strategy games don't have a lot of. So where we try to stand out and where we think we do a better job is retaining that first-day customer, because there's more for them to do and more going on, and then encouraging them to come back to the game and get them into the strategy portion of the game later, if that makes sense. And then the second question, which I can't remember now because I talked about that too long.
As you go into game 2 and game 3, how do you plan on not cannibalizing your user base and keeping each game growing with paying users?
So Zynga's business model is very much around their cannibalization. They, I believe anyway, the reason that they roll out a game every 6 months and try to move all of their users onto it all at once is because that's their retention. Their retention is not trying to keep a user in a game for years. Their retention model is trying to keep a user within the Zynga portfolio for years. We will do something similar. I don't think that there's a game on this planet outside of maybe World of Warcraft that's going to successfully keep a user engaged for 5 to 10 years on one product. There's just too much competition for that user's attention. I think as a company we will benefit by rolling users into one product and maybe back into the other if they've never seen the other product before, versus just trying hard to always keep the same user in the same game for a decade, which I don't think is a good proposition.
Doesn't that, with the schedule that you have, rolling something out this year, another one next year, you're not even giving yourself like a 2-year life cycle or runway on each of these games to keep users there because it's going to try to push them.
The games will be different enough to where it's not the same point-and-click model that Zynga does. So it is our hope that users will try all of our games because they are substantially different. But I don't know if that answers your question well enough. But it's not one where we want to just sort of kill off one. We expect it to to continue, rolling along. And we've seen evidence of this, like with Big Points or Game Forges of the world, where they continue to have the games they started with, and they continue to have million-player populations. But they, as they add more people on, those people continue to try all of their games, and eventually cycle through them all, if that makes sense.
That's a great question. You mentioned in the materials that your early negotiations with publishers so that you maintain ownership of your IP. Obviously, you're not looking to the publishers for development dollars because you're raising that. What are you looking for out of the publisher?
Marketing primarily. So yeah, the idea of trying to market in Germany scares me. So I want to partner with somebody that knows how to do that, and ideally partner with somebody who can already bring 50 to 100 million users to the table right away. So I mentioned BigPoint in the last question. If we were to partner with somebody like BigPoint, they have a portal where I think they boast 100 million users a month visit that site. That to me is very cheap advertising, some value that a publisher would bring to the table from day one.
But BigPoint would want to own your IP, so that wouldn't work.
Once it's already developed, the publishers are much more likely to negotiate a revenue split with you. That includes BigPoint and GameForge. The time when they want to own the IP is when they have to put skin in the game early on. If it's already monetizing in one territory, where we saw this with the Nine. The Nine does not own our IP. We signed a revenue split deal with them for Korea, where they market the product, they support the product in Korea, and then we take a license royalty from them because we still own the intellectual property. And that's the type of deal that we're looking to replicate worldwide.
Do your revenue projections in here, are they net of all the publisher cuts?
The revenue projections in the IPTA slide or whatever,
yeah.
That's just domestic revenue. Okay. But the 3-year, we included projections for publisher revenue.
Less
publisher revenue. So your revenue numbers are already in those projections less.
That's correct. Yeah, and that's estimating about a 30% cut back to us. They keep 60% or 70% of the revenue for themselves.
Chris, it's a really good pitch.
Thanks.
Kind of an operating question. So game 2, you're leveraging your technology off game 1, which makes a whole lot of sense. Did I hear right? It's going to take a year, kind of from start to finish, to get the second game done, and if so, why? Why a year?
Well, because that's how long it takes to make games of this kind. It's not your standard just sort of Farmville point and click, where we think we can get it out a whole lot faster. There's a certain bar, artistic bar, that we have to reach. So there's, just to roughly break it down, you have about 3 months of pre-production, and we make sure that we, spend very little money on the game, but make sure we actually have a good, fun game to play. And then we'll spend another 3 to 4 months on production, and that's the time it's going to take us to develop the artwork that we need to make the game, develop the audio, finish out any technical changes that we have to make. And then we'll go into a beta period for another 3 to 4 months on top of that to make sure that we don't need to change anything at the last minute, not to make sure, to know what we need to change at the last minute to monetize the users and keep them well. So when you add all that up, that is going to come out to about a year. And that is the trend that you're seeing now in the social game space. Even Zynga is spending longer making their products just to try to meet a certain quality bar before they ship it.
Okay, thank you.
Typically in models like this, you're looking at a very low MVP, right? People are bringing those products to market at a $300,000 to $700,000 investment. They're not putting the whole 1.8 in or $2 million in up front. They beta it and begin monetization so they have a revenue offset coming out for future investment. Have you considered what your MVP looks like, or are you going to go all the way to the end?
No, I mean, if the game's not monetizing, early on, and well, I guess for the first test is in our pre-production. If we can't get people to play the game there, then it's something we either just have to make major changes to, or give up on and try something different. At the beta period there, then it's like any other investment. Let's say we've invested $500,000 in development to that point. We get to the beta period and it's just not fun. And we're not retaining users, or they're not monetizing, whatever, we can then say, all right, it's going to take us another $500,000 to make this fun and fix those problems, or we can spend that $500,000.
So you're looking at 1.8 to the end, not to MVP.
Right, and that's also combined with what we need to do to scale up Dungeon Overlord, which is by marketing and all that.
Well, let's open it up to the audience for questions. Any questions from out here?
Wow, this is easy, no questions.
Anybody want to ask questions about his fundraising experience?
Yeah, well, I've got one.
Okay.
So, Chris, this is actually the third time I've seen it pitch, and excellent job. You're 3 for 3.
All right, thanks.
So, one thing I'd be curious is, you showed is when you see pitches multiple times, it's great to see the company grow, and Chris's numbers continue to get better and better. So, I'd like for you to kind of give us what were some inflection points as you rolled this game out for you. I saw there was a couple times where your users actually went to 0. So maybe some negatives and some positives as well.
Wow, so I guess, I'll just take a trip down memory lane then and just sort of talk about what's been going on. So, there were lots of weird decision points we've had to make, especially in the last year. When we first started Dungeon Overlord, our beta you'll notice, had a very long 9-month beta period. Well, the reason for that was when we first started our beta, we were with Sony Online Entertainment. They were our publishers, and they were going to market the game. I saw a whoops over there, which was appropriate.
Sorry, I used to work there. I'm allowed to say that.
They were a good partner for us. They did bring some value to the table. However, they had some problems in their business. Anywhere from they had some problems with their parent company, with Earthquake in Japan, to they had some problem monetizing individual games on the platform. And they had come to the conclusion that as a company, they made a strategic mistake by going to Facebook and trying to compete in the social games market. As a developer, when your publisher says, hey, we made a strategic mistake, then you're going, uh-oh, what does that mean? Does that mean that all of the marketing dollars that I was going to count on you for are not going to be spent? And that's exactly what it means. So we had to figure something out at that point. What we figured out was, hey, when we signed the deal with Sony, we still owned 100% of the IP. So it was a very good deal that we were able to sign with those guys. So because of that, we made the decision, let's go out and raise some money and buy our rights, all the publishing rights back from Sony. If they don't want to be in the space, we still want to be in the space, we're going to do that. So that was one of our first rocky roads, and that led to the second part, which was we are now not just a developer, we're also a publisher of Facebook games. That sounds great on paper, but it's really, really hard. I mean, there is value in working with a publisher as a developer. And when you don't have that publisher, you realize where that value is very quickly. We had no marketing expertise. We had very little infrastructure to rely on for servicing our game. We had to build a customer service strategy from scratch. All of these things took time, they took money, made our investors nervous as we blew past our schedule by a couple of months. But eventually we got the game out there and we got it serviceable. Now the problems tend to be a little less dramatic. It tends to be that, oh, your retention is going down this month. Why is that? Okay, we've got to figure out what that is with the metrics and fix it. Oh, your cost of acquisition is getting higher. What can we do to keep that lower? How can we increase our lifetime value based upon what our competitors tell us you should be at? So those are problems I like fixing a lot more than these big dramatic problems that we've had to fix in the last year. Does that answer your question?
More or less.
Okay.
Questions?
Do you see any issue with previous IPs such as Dungeon Keeper, where it's the same overall model, same design, interactions?
The issues are good for us in that because that IP has not been utilized by Electronic Arts, there are a lot of people that love that franchise, and those people tend to love our game. So it's something that we like when our fans draw comparisons to that. The other thing that would be nice is if Electronic Arts someday decided, you know what, that Dungeon Keeper thing was really a good idea. Maybe we should buy this company over here, this guiding product like Dungeon Keeper, and just have them bring it to market with the Dungeon Keeper brand. Yeah.
I actually have the same question relative to your second game and Battle Pirates with Kickstarter.
Yeah, Battle Pirates is a modern Pirates game. We're definitely going for the romantic pirate in the 15th century kind of sense. Yes?
Yeah, I remember you mentioned in the beginning that the game's more like for people who 5-10 minutes in between classes at work when you're, I guess, on an individual device, phone or on your laptop. But you also stated like possible holes of acquisition by just massive, very massive marketing, and then at the same time the technology. Like for example, a lot of laptops have HDMI coming into massive big screens, so it's becoming a lot more engaging. And then you have other people who are not necessarily gamers who are still seeing and viewing the game. Like for example, Call of Duty. I know for myself, I don't necessarily enjoy games, but I don't necessarily enjoy playing games. But Call of Duty is very interesting and engaging to look at. So if I'm with someone who's playing the game, I'm a lot less likely to complain or just wanting to turn it off. If it doesn't allow the person to play for a limited number of time. And so then you have a game that's then visible and known, so it's a non-game. So that possibly, let's say with Disney, you never know how far to go. Maybe a movie. You want something that's like something that the game, yes, willing to expand, but how far you can expand. You want others to, who are not necessarily those gamers, to know the game, maybe possibly, like to see the game, be engaged in another method as opposed to just, personal one-on-one for the computer and you see where my question is?
I'm not sure, but let me try to boil it down. Is what kind of opportunities do you see outside of the core gamer market? Is that?
Well, just specifically for this product, because you said that it was, limited to maybe a few minutes in between, like maybe school and work. But at the same time, from what I'm seeing, that you're kind of hoping for it to kind of take that next step. And like mentioning Disney, where the brand kind of needs to be more so than just a particular gamer. And also, at the same time, games are not just limited to a person on their phone or on their computer. If I have the ability to plug in, an HDMI cable, play on the big screen, there's other people in that room that may be there who are seeing this game. And you kind of, I know the name they might not play it, but they're also going to be engaged with your product. Do you want them to be more familiar with your product, or do you want just a particular gamer to see it?
Well, let me try to talk about it. I'm still not sure I 100% understand where you're going, but
I don't get it either.
When you're developing a game, it's really important to understand how the game will be used and what platform it's at. So it's because we're on the Facebook and in the browser space, the vast majority of people who play games in that space only have a few minutes to maybe a maximum of 20 minutes to actually play that game. And so you can't make a game that can scale, maybe you can, but I haven't figured out a way to make a game that scales very well from, oh, you can only play it for 5 minutes and have a great time, or oh, you can play it for 2 hours and have a great time. I think you have to be very, very careful when you're developing a game to make sure you understand how your market is going to use the game and what platform they're going to be playing it on. Now, if it happens to get bigger, if it happens to get bought by Disney and people really love this product and they make movies and they make dolls and stuff out of it, that's great for us. But I think as game developers, and I'm talking more about game development philosophy now, you have to be really targeted about how you approach the gamer and sort of make sure you understand how your core audience is going to view your product. Yes.
This might be getting too much into marketing. I'm curious, because you said you're in a market to the hardcore gaming market, which is something that typically which is a group typically doesn't play Facebook and social games and everything. That same group, though, typically doesn't run into a lot of the advertising for such things. They see an ad on the Facebook that says play our game, often it's just completely ignored by a hardcore market because it just gets lumped in with the Farmville, the Cityville, and so on. Whereas conversely, major news outlets for video gaming, for your typical websites, your Kotaku, your IGN, the social gaming games aren't covered explicitly, unless there's a lot of financial backing behind them. So how is it you intend to actually, draw the hardcore gamers' attention to the game in the first place to get them to attach?
Sure. So a couple of points on that. One, there are a lot of hardcore gamers on Facebook. They just don't play games on Facebook. So those people we can reach out to through traditional Facebook ads and actually get their attention. The other is through PR. So we do a lot of PR. We've gotten reviews on places like Total Biscuit. And if you know who Total Biscuit is, he's a very interesting UK commentator who spends a lot of time commentating StarCraft 2 games and reviewing other games. He got a hold of our game and played it and liked it and reviewed it on his site. And then we saw a nice increase in traffic for that day, and very valuable traffic, because he also said this is what you need to spend money on. And that was great. So we have gotten reviews on MMORPG.com, Massively.com. I think we're on Massively. If we're not there yet, we will be soon. So we are doing PR to do that. We still get a fair amount of feedback from the hardcore gaming market. No, I will not get on Facebook no matter what you tell me, forget about it. Well, we are going to be launching Dio.com in April, so that a hardcore gamer can go directly to our site and play without going to Facebook, as well as on Google+. We find there's a lot less animosity towards Google than Facebook with the hardcore gaming crowd.
Just to dovetail on that, the Kabam and Kixeye are specifically targeted at the core gaming market. And if you look at, as of December of last year, in terms of monthly average uniques, they were number 19 and number 20 in terms of largest publishers on Facebook. But if you look at them in terms of revenue, and a lot of this isn't public knowledge, so a lot of it's just guessing and backing into numbers through app data and a variety of other things, they're probably number 4 and 5, or maybe 5 and 6. So hardcore users monetize much higher. than the average. And so from a revenue perspective, there's a huge opportunity, and you can reach them through Facebook and through traditional methods. And the second part of that is, that's why you go with a publisher. Because people like, pardon the self-plug, but people like us do that. We have relationships with hardcore gamers. That's the nature of our business.
And so their engagement times are much higher as well.
Right, much longer play times, and we have that existing community with 85 million people a month that come to our website. So, like that's the play.
Yes.
Can you talk about the social aspect of the game?
So the social aspect of the game, right? So in the game, what's nice about the game is you not only can bring your friends into the game and play with your friends, but you can meet new people because it is a massively multiplayer game, and you're on a map with 1,000 or 2,000 other people. So there's an opportunity for people to converse with each other and form alliances with each other with people they may not have even known. But more specifically, we have game features that encourage users to bring their existing friends from their existing social network into the game. And these translate roughly to the same advantages that you can buy with real money. You can achieve a lot of the same advantages by bringing friends into the game to play with you.
Last question?
How are those social aspects going to work if you move the game off onto your own site?
It's much harder, but the same methods that we use to get a user through Facebook, we'll use things like Twitter and email and Facebook Connect to help tap into a user's network. Even though it's not as explicit and as in your face as like a Facebook social network is, there are ways that users still connect outside of Facebook, and we'll try to tap into those.
And that's our time. Thank you.
Man, that was a tough act. I know how I stuff together. We were a much earlier stage company, but I think it's an interesting story. We're not going for the high end, or if you will, hardcore audience. We're not going for the super casual audience. We're going for what we think is a fairly untapped audience, and one that has tremendous potential. And so our product is called Songverse, and we consider it a music entertainment platform, not a single game, but a mechanism of making several kinds of games. And so personal experience, 15 plus years in game development in a wide variety of spaces, console, coin-op, MMO, and even manufacturing in China and shipping around the world. And a common thread through all these things is music games, and so it's really steeped in our experience, my team's experience, a lot of the folks who have worked forward over the years. Monsters is my latest startup to pursue a new idea that's, I think, an evolution of this. And so in essence, what we're trying to do is combine what was really popular in the last generation of games on the consoles, which rose and fell, which is music games. Music games aren't like a really new idea. They've been popular in Japan for a long time. They've had popularity here in the United States for quite a while, especially those who love anime. But it took an Americanization of the effort with Guitar Hero and then its spin-off, Rock Band, to really make sense to the American audience and to hit the kind of high numbers they hit. What we want to do is combine that with what's happening in the current generation, what's popular in the current generation, which is social media and social gaming. And in these cases, like Chris said, these are very simple and shallow games. We want to merge those two in an intelligent way. And so we're launching a next generation music entertainment platform that runs on social. And our approach is to leverage proven segment of gaming, which we consider as music gaming. It works, it makes a lot of money. We want to take those music games online. We want to do it in an intelligent way to be formatted, be social network friendly. Our key technology that enables this is a patent-pending music engine that allows a compression of the time that it takes to take a music game. So like if you want to make a Guitar Hero level or a Rock Band level, it might take you 3 to 4 weeks of hard coding. We've got a method now that can bring it down to about 30 seconds. And so that's really important for a couple of reasons. One is that it opens up the kinds of music that you can incorporate into the system, and also it allows for rapid modification and gives that modification power to the users. And so it's not just what we create in our labs, but allows for creative potential on the user side. And one of the other interesting things is that emerged in the last 6 months is music lockers from folks like Amazon and Google and Apple when they open their API, and MP3 Tunes. And also very interesting, this is from a legal side precedent, where MP3 Tunes won their lawsuit to say that the content on music lockers was effectively the same as the content on a user's hard drive. And so that implies certain interesting utilizations of that content in a web or cloud space. So to briefly go over our key technology, what we do is we analyze the audio, we extract the interesting events that happen in the music, and we have algorithms that translate that to real-time 3D prompts for action. And so we can present these in simple ways, like a Tap Tap Revenge, or we can transform them in complex ways, like in a driving game or a punching game, where in a driving game, the obstacles and turns are based on music. In the punching game, the punches and blocks are based on music. And we consider that kind of a blue ocean of potential new game mechanics that we can explore with music and in a way that's highly compelling. And so when we talk about the audience and who this addresses, there's really three key people. One is what we call Sonorous FM, which is going to be our online site that users can get to. Consider it like an equivalent of Turntable FM, where users can play games with any music from any locker. If they have the content, they can play a game with it. If they don't have the content, we'll provide them the capability to buy it, and we'll take an affiliate revenue percentage on it. They can a variety of different